At gate C-47, Marcus Thompson thought he'd seen every variation of airport discrimination in his 20 years of weekly travel. By the time Flight 2847 was grounded indefinitely, the airline had lost $340 million in market value, and 4 executives were clearing out their offices. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit subscribe so stories like this don't get buried. The scene was Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, Terminal C, Gate C-47. The 6:15 p.m. departure to New York LaGuardia had just begun pre-boarding, and that's when Marcus Thompson, 6'2", wearing a charcoal Tom Ford suit with a Princeton-class ring that cost more than most people's cars, approached the gate with his 73-year-old mother, Dorothy, and his 9-year-old daughter, Jasmine. They didn't look like they belonged in first class. At least that's what Jennifer Chen decided in the 4 seconds it took to glance up from her computer screen. Chen was a 12-year veteran gate agent for Prestige Airlines, and she'd worked this route Dallas to New York, the executive shuttle, for 8 of those years. She knew the first-class passengers, the regulars, the oil executives with their monogrammed luggage, the tech founders in their designer hoodies, the private equity guys who treated her like furniture. Marcus Thompson wasn't a regular. Not her kind of regular, anyway. Dorothy Thompson moved slowly, one hand on her son's arm, the other gripping a worn leather purse that had traveled with her since 1987. Jasmine clutched a stuffed elephant and a book about NASA engineers. They were laughing about something, some private family joke, as they approached. Chen's eyes went to the boarding passes on Marcus's phone. 3 first-class seats, 2A, 2B, 2C. Her expression tightened. "Sir," her voice carried across the gate area, sharp enough that conversations nearby stuttered. "Sir, I'm going to need to see those boarding passes." Marcus looked up, the smile fading slightly. He'd been here before. Different airport, different year, same tone. "Of course." He held out his phone. Chen didn't reach for it. "I need to verify those in the system." "They're legitimate." Marcus kept his voice level. "Purchased through the app 3 weeks ago." "I'm sure they are." Chen's fingers were already flying across her keyboard. "But we've had issues with fraudulent mobile passes, upgraded without authorization. I'm sure you understand we need to be thorough." The words landed exactly as intended. Dorothy's hand tightened on Marcus's arm. She'd heard this music before. Different words, same song. In 1968, it had been, "We need to verify your reservation at a whites-only hotel in Birmingham." In 1985, "We need to confirm your payment at a car dealership in Houston." In 2003, "We need to validate your membership at a country club in Connecticut," where her son was already on the board. Jasmine looked up at her father, confused. "Dad." "It's fine, sweetheart." Marcus's voice stayed steady, professional. He'd learned this from Dorothy. Dignity was a weapon they couldn't take from you. "The agent is just doing her job." But Chen wasn't doing her job. She was performing it. For the gate area. For the passengers who were now watching. The white couple in matching Patagonia vests, the businessman in the Brooks Brothers suit, the young professional with her Toomey carry-on. All of them first-class passengers. All of them waiting to see if Chen would protect their space from intrusion. "Mr." squinted at her screen, "Thompson. These passes show a discounted rate. Companion passes. Those are generally for employees and their immediate families." "I'm aware." Marcus's jaw tightened fractionally. "I am an immediate family member." "Of which employee?" The question hung in the air. "I'd prefer to board now," Marcus said quietly. "My mother is 73 and has been standing for." "Sir, I need to complete the verification process." Chen's voice rose slightly, performing control. "If you can just step aside and allow the other first-class passengers to board while I contact our employee relations department." "My boarding pass is valid." Marcus didn't move. "We have seat assignments. We're in the correct boarding group." Sir, Chen stood now, her 5'4" frame radiating borrowed authority. I'm asking you politely to step aside. If you refuse to comply with crew member instructions, I can deny you boarding entirely. There it was. The threat that turned policy into weapon. The words that transformed verification into punishment. Dorothy's voice came soft, barely audible. Baby, maybe we should. No, Mama. Marcus looked at his mother, and something in his eyes was older than his 42 years, older than her 73, old as every indignity she'd swallowed so her children could have better. Not this time. He turned back to Chen. You have my boarding pass, you have my ID, you have confirmation in your system. What else do you need? Chen's face flushed. She wasn't used to pushback, not from passengers like this. I need you to step aside, sir, or I will call security. Then call them. Marcus's voice didn't rise, didn't waver. Because I'm not moving until you explain on what policy basis you're denying boarding to 3 passengers with valid first-class tickets. The gate area had gone silent. All eyes on them now. The businessman in Brooks Brothers had his phone out, recording. This was Chen's fatal miscalculation, the first of many. The audience she was performing for was documenting her performance. A teenager near the window was live streaming. Her caption, Karen Gate Agent versus Black Family at DFW grimacing face, flying discrimination. Chen noticed the phones, but she'd come too far to back down now. Backing down meant admitting error, admitting she'd profiled them, admitting that skin color, not policy, had triggered this entire interaction. Fine, Chen reached for her radio. This is Gate C-47. I need security to Terminal C for a disruptive passenger refusing crew member instructions. Jasmine pressed closer to her grandmother. Daddy. Marcus knelt down, his Tom Ford suit creasing at the knees. It's okay, baby. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. We're just going to wait for someone who can fix this. He stood, checked his watch. A Patek Philippe inherited from his father worth more than Chen's annual salary. She didn't notice, wasn't looking for those markers, saw only what she expected to see. Within 90 seconds, 2 TSA officers arrived, Derek Williams and Paul Martinez, both in their early 30s, both wearing expressions of forced neutrality that policed their faces the moment they saw the composition. Black man, black elder, black child. White gate agent. Phones recording. They'd seen this movie before. What's the situation? Williams asked, addressing Chen but looking at Marcus. This passenger is refusing to comply with verification procedures, Chen said. Her voice taking on an official quality, flattening into policy language. He became argumentative when I attempted to confirm his boarding passes, which show signs of potential fraud. Fraud, Marcus's voice stayed level, deadly level. What signs? Chen faltered. The companion rate structure suggests. Suggests what? Marcus turned to the TSA officers. I purchased these tickets 3 weeks ago through the Prestige Airlines mobile app. I can show you the credit card charge $8,400 for 3 first-class seats to LaGuardia. My account is verified. My boarding passes are issued. The agent decided to question their validity based on. He paused, letting the silence do the work. What would you say, Agent Chen? What about my appearance suggested fraud? Williams and Martinez exchanged a glance. They knew. Everyone knew. But knowing and acting were different things. The system protected Chen. The system questioned Marcus. That was the design. Sir, Martinez said carefully, if you can just show us your confirmation. I've shown it. Marcus didn't look away from Chen. Multiple times. To the agent who decided that 3 black people couldn't possibly afford first-class seats. I never said, Chen's voice cracked slightly. You didn't have to. Dorothy spoke now, her voice carrying the weight of 7 decades. Baby, you said it with everything but your mouth. The gate area was tomb silent. 27 passengers, all watching. The live stream had 847 viewers now. The businessman's video was already uploading to Twitter. A passenger in row 12 was texting her sister, who worked at CNN. This was going somewhere. Chen felt it, the moment shifting beneath her feet. But she'd built her authority on never backing down, never admitting error, never letting these passengers, think they could challenge her domain. "Officers, I'm requesting this passenger be denied boarding for creating a disturbance." Williams looked at Martinez. Martinez looked at the crowd of witnesses, both of them calculating career preservation versus doing the right thing. The math rarely favored the right thing. "Mr. Thompson," Williams said slowly, "would you be willing to take a later flight while we sort this out? I'm sure the airline can accommodate." "No." Marcus's voice was quiet, final. "My mother is 73 years old and has been standing for 15 minutes while being publicly humiliated. My 9-year-old daughter is watching her father be treated like a criminal for the crime of purchasing airplane tickets. I'm not taking a later flight. I'm taking the flight I paid $8,400 to be on." "Sir, unless you're arresting me," Marcus continued, "I'm exercising my right to board the aircraft I have a confirmed reservation for." The TSA officers stood there, caught between procedure and phone cameras, between authority and optics, between the easier path and the right one. They chose easier. "Sir, if you don't comply with the agent's request," Martinez said, "we'll have to deny you access to the gate." Marcus looked at his mother, at his daughter, at the 27 witnesses who would describe this moment differently depending on their own relationship to power and skin color and assumptions about who belongs where. He pulled out his phone, opened his contacts, found a name, made a call. "Richard," he said when the line connected, "we need to talk right now." 7 words. The beginning of the end. What Jennifer Chen didn't know, what Derek Williams and Paul Martinez didn't know, what none of the 27 witnesses knew was that Marcus Thompson wasn't just a first-class passenger. 18 months earlier, Marcus Thompson had led a consortium of private equity investors in acquiring a controlling stake in Prestige Airlines for $12.3 billion. The deal had made headlines. Tech entrepreneur enters airline industry. But the photos in Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal showed Marcus in boardrooms, not airports, in suits, not casual wear, with white executives, not his family. He'd been flying commercial on Prestige specifically to evaluate the customer service experience. 200,000 miles a year, across every hub, every route, taking mental notes about what worked and what needed fixing. Gate agents who profiled passengers had been on his list of things that needed fixing. Chen was scheduled for her annual performance review in 3 days. Thompson had been scheduled to observe her for the last 45 minutes, from a distance, clipboard in hand, taking notes on efficiency, professionalism, customer interaction quality. Chen had found it wanting. The voice on the phone, Richard Morrison, CEO of Prestige Airlines, went quiet for 3 seconds after Marcus finished explaining the situation in precise, documented detail. "Then put me on speaker." Marcus tapped the screen, held the phone where Chen could hear. "This is Richard Morrison, CEO of Prestige Airlines. Am I speaking with gate agent Jennifer Chen?" Chen's face went white, bloodless, the color of someone watching their career catch fire in real time. Yes sir, this is Chen." "Ms. Chen, you are hereby suspended effective immediately. You will proceed directly to the Employee Security Office, surrender your badge and credentials, and await escort from the premises. Officers Williams and Martinez, you will allow Mr. Thompson and his family to board immediately without further delay or documentation requests. Mr. Thompson is the majority shareholder of Prestige Airlines and was conducting a scheduled evaluation of gate operations. Ms. Chen, You are subject to termination pending investigation into racial profiling and violation of our customer service protocols. This call is being recorded. Do you understand? Silence. The gate area was frozen. 27 passengers holding their breath. The live stream at 3,200 viewers. The businessman's Twitter video already retweeted by a civil rights organization with 400,000 followers. Ms. Chen, I asked if you understand. Yes, I understand. Her voice barely audible. Mr. Thompson, please accept my personal apology for this disgraceful treatment. Your family's boarding passes are valid, your seats are confirmed, and you will be upgraded. Morrison paused. Actually, you own the airline. You'll be traveling in whatever configuration you prefer. I'm assigning a customer service manager to personally escort your family to the aircraft and ensure your flight is comfortable. That won't be necessary, Richard. Marcus's voice was still level, still controlled, still the same tone he'd used when Chen first challenged him. What will be necessary is a comprehensive review of passenger profiling protocols across all hubs, mandatory bias training for all customer-facing staff, and a public statement from Prestige Airlines about our commitment to serving all passengers with equal dignity regardless of appearance, race, or assumptions about economic status. You'll have it within 24 hours. 48 is fine, do it right. Yes, sir. Marcus ended the call. Looked at Chen. She was crying now, silent tears tracking through makeup she'd applied at 5:00 a.m. for a shift that had just ended her 12-year career. She started. I didn't know. That's the problem, Marcus said quietly. You didn't know, you didn't ask, you assumed. And your assumptions about who belongs in first class, about who can afford tickets, about who deserves dignity, those assumptions just cost you your job. He turned to Williams and Martinez. Officers, thank you for your time. We'd like to board now. They stepped aside. Not request, escort. Marcus took his mother's arm. Jasmine held his other hand. They walked down the jetway while 27 passengers watched in absolute silence. Behind them, Chen was being led away by a supervisor who'd arrived with stunning speed. Her badge surrendered. Her radio collected. Her 12 years of seniority evaporating in the time it took to escort her past the Starbucks, past the Hudson News, past the bathroom where she'd straightened her uniform shirt that morning thinking this would be a day like any other. The businessman posted his video to Twitter at 6:32 p.m. By 7:00 p.m., it had 40,000 views. By 9:00 p.m., CNN was running a segment. Airline owner racially profiled at own gate. By midnight, the hashtag #FlyingWhileBlack was trending with 200,000 tweets. By morning, Prestige Airlines stock had dropped 3.2%. Wiping out $340 million in market value. But Marcus Thompson wasn't thinking about stock prices as Flight 2847 pushed back from Gate C47, 15 minutes delayed, but otherwise on schedule. He was thinking about his mother. Dorothy sat in 2B, her hands folded in her lap, looking out the window at the tarmac lights. Jasmine was already asleep in 2C, the stuffed elephant tucked under her chin. You didn't have to do that, baby, Dorothy said softly. We could have taken a later flight. We could have, Marcus agreed. Like we took a later table at that restaurant in Birmingham. Like we waited for another salesperson at that dealership in Houston. Like we accepted another humiliation at that country club in Connecticut. Dorothy turned to look at her son, her firstborn. The child she'd raised through Jim Crow and its aftershocks, through redlining and school integration fights, through 1,000 small degradations that tried to teach him his place. You know what your daddy used to say? Dorothy's voice carried the weight of memory. He used to say, they can't take your dignity unless you give it to them. I remember. He also said, when you get the power to change things, don't just change your own situation. Change the system. Marcus nodded. That's what we're doing, Mama. That's exactly what we're doing. Because this wasn't just about Jennifer Chen. Chen was a symptom. The disease was systemic, embedded in training protocols that taught gate agents to watch for suspicious behavior, to verify unusual booking patterns, to question passengers who didn't fit the first-class profile. The profile that was never explicitly racial but was always implicitly so. Marcus had been documenting it for 18 months. Gate agents who smiled at white passengers and interrogated black ones. Flight attendants who offered drinks immediately to some rows and forgot others. Customer service protocols that called behavior disruptive when performed by passengers of color and assertive when performed by white business travelers. He'd collected data, incident reports, anonymous employee testimonials, video evidence from his own flights and others. The incident at Gate C-47 wasn't an aberration. It was confirmation. Within 48 hours, exactly as Marcus had requested, Prestige Airlines released a public statement acknowledging systemic bias in customer service protocols. The statement, drafted by Morrison but edited by Marcus, didn't use vague corporate language about commitment to diversity. It used specific admissions. Our internal review has confirmed that passengers of color are 3.4 times more likely to be questioned about ticket validity, 2.7 times more likely to be selected for random additional screening, and 4.1 times more likely to be denied boarding for disruptive behavior that would be tolerated in white passengers. These disparities are unacceptable. They reflect institutional racism in our policies, training, and corporate culture. We are implementing immediate reforms. The reforms were specific. Within 2 weeks, every gate agent, flight attendant, and customer service representative at every Prestige hub would complete mandatory anti-bias training developed in partnership with the Equal Justice Initiative, not the generic corporate diversity module that employees clicked through while checking email. Actual training, 8 hours, in person, with real scenarios and accountability. Within 30 days, Prestige would hire Dr. Kimberlé Williams Crenshaw, the legal scholar who coined the term intersectionality, as a consultant to redesign customer service protocols from the ground up, eliminating subjective judgments that created space for bias. Within 60 days, Prestige would implement a passenger bill of rights that included specific protections against profiling, clear standards for when verification was appropriate, and mandatory reporting of all denied boarding incidents with demographic data tracked and published quarterly. Within 90 days, Prestige would create a VP of Customer Equity position, a C-suite role reporting directly to the CEO, responsible for ensuring that every passenger, regardless of race, economic status, disability, or appearance, received identical treatment. The VP of Customer Equity would be Dr. Patricia Harris, a former NAACP Legal Defense Fund attorney who'd spent 20 years fighting discrimination in public accommodations. She started at a salary of $380,000 plus equity. Her first hire was a team of 7 customer equity officers who would work undercover, booking flights, traveling as regular passengers, documenting treatment, to ensure compliance wasn't just policy but practice. Marcus funded the entire initiative out of his personal stake in the airline. Cost, $8.4 million the first year. Return on investment, incalculable. Because the alternative, the cost of doing nothing, was measured in destroyed lives, humiliated families, children like Jasmine learning that the world saw them as suspects before seeing them as people. Jennifer Chen's video went viral, but not the way she'd hoped. In the moment, standing at Gate C-47 with her radio in hand and her authority on display, she'd imagined the recording would vindicate her, would show she'd followed protocol, had been right to question, had been protecting the airline from fraud. Instead, the video showed exactly what it was. A black family, professionally dressed, calm, dignified, being publicly humiliated while white passengers watched in silent complicity. A gate agent drunk on borrowed power. A system designed to protect some travelers by presuming others guilty. The video reached 12 million views in 72 hours. Chen tried to apologize, issued a statement through a crisis management firm she couldn't afford, paid for with a credit card she'd maxed. "I deeply regret my actions at Gate C-47. I allowed unconscious bias to cloud my judgment. I am committed to learning and growing from this experience." The apology landed like a stone in water. Sank without trace. Because the damage wasn't just to Marcus Thompson, or Dorothy, or Jasmine. The damage was to every black traveler who'd ever been questioned, every family that had ever been made to feel they didn't belong, every parent who'd had to explain to their child why the nice lady thought daddy was a criminal. Chen's apology couldn't undo that. Within a week, Chen was unemployed. Within 2 weeks, she was unemployable, at least in customer service. Her name returned 40,000 Google results, all of them leading back to the video. Her LinkedIn profile had been viewed 85,000 times by people who weren't hearing. She sent Marcus a personal letter, handwritten, 3 pages of apology and explanation, and begging for a statement she could use to begin rebuilding her life. Marcus didn't respond. Not because he was cruel, not because he enjoyed her suffering, but because her suffering, her destroyed career, her viral humiliation, her permanent digital record, was the point. The cost of casual racism had to be high enough that the Jennifer Chens of the world would think twice, would question their assumptions, would see a black family in first class and think passengers instead of fraud. Fear of consequences was a blunt tool for social change. But sometimes blunt tools were what you had. 6 months after Gate C-47, Marcus Thompson was back at DFW, Terminal C, watching gate operations from a distance. Not evaluation this time, observation. Gate C-47 had a new agent, Carlos Rodriguez, 28, recently promoted from customer service. Rodriguez had completed the anti-bias training, had sat through 8 hours of scenarios about assumptions and dignity and the difference between protocol and prejudice. Now Marcus watched him work. A family approached, black father, black mother, 2 young children, first-class boarding passes. Rodriguez smiled. "Good evening, folks. Welcome aboard. Let me scan those passes for you." Simple, easy. No verification, no questioning, no performance of authority. Just service. The family boarded. Rodriguez went back to his screen. Marcus felt something in his chest loosen. Not satisfaction exactly, not victory, something smaller and more fragile. Hope, maybe. That systems could change, that training could work, that the invisible weight his mother had carried for 73 years might be lighter for Jasmine's generation. Dorothy was with him. She'd insisted on coming. "Want to see what we built," she'd said. She watched Rodriguez for a long moment, then turned to her son. "Your daddy would be proud." "Think so?" "No, so," Dorothy squeezed his hand. "You didn't just win, you changed the game." Flight 2847 became a case study. Harvard Business School used it in their MBA program to teach corporate crisis management. Georgetown Law School used it to discuss Title II of the Civil Rights Act and public accommodations. Training programs across the airline industry used it as an example of what not to do. The incident spawned a documentary, Flying While Black, The Hidden Crisis of Airline Discrimination, that premiered at Sundance and was acquired by Netflix for $3.2 million. Dorothy Thompson was interviewed for the documentary. Sitting in her living room, surrounded by photos of her children and grandchildren and the ancestors who'd fought their way through worse, she said this. My son didn't just defend himself that day. He defended every person who's ever been made to feel they don't belong somewhere they paid to be, every family that's been questioned, every child that's been taught they're suspect before they're seen as human. He used his power not for revenge but for reform. That's what we taught him. That's what his daddy knew. Power reveals character, and my son's character is his father's legacy. The quote went viral, appeared on t-shirts and Instagram posts and classroom posters. But the real legacy wasn't the quote. It was the numbers. 1 year after Gate C-47, Prestige Airlines' quarterly report on denied boarding showed that racial disparities in questioning had dropped from 3.4x to 1.1x. Still not perfect, still work to do, but measurably better. 1 year after Gate C-47, passenger complaints about discriminatory treatment had decreased 67%. 1 year after Gate C-47, Prestige had hired 240 new employees specifically from communities of color, trained by customer equity officers who understood that diversity without dignity was performative. 1 year after Gate C-47, 3 other major airlines had adopted similar reforms, not out of altruism but out of fear. Fear that their own Jennifer Chens would be caught on video, their own biases exposed, their own stock prices hammered. Fear was a blunt tool, but it was working. Marcus Thompson still flies first class, still travels 200,000 miles a year, still sits in 2A with his mother in 2B and his daughter in 2C when schedules allow. The difference is what happens when he approaches the gate. Now gate agents see a passenger, not a profile, not an assumption, not a question mark to be verified. Just a person with a ticket and a confirmed seat, and the right to travel with dignity. It's a small thing, that shift in seeing. But small things matter when you spent a lifetime being seen wrong. Last month, Marcus was at O'Hare, Terminal 3, waiting to board a flight to Seattle. A young gate agent, maybe 24, white, nervous, was working his first week on the job. He saw Marcus approach, saw the first-class boarding pass, saw Dorothy moving slowly with her cane and Jasmine clutching her NASA book. The agent smiled. "Good evening, Dr. Thompson. Welcome back. Your seats are all set. Can I help with any bags?" Marcus stopped. "You know my name." The agent nodded. "You're in the system, Platinum Elite Plus. Also, he lowered his voice, suddenly shy. "I saw the training video from Dallas. What you did, changing the policies and everything, that's why I wanted to work here, wanted to be part of a company that actually tries to do better." Marcus looked at this kid, this nervous, earnest, 24-year-old white kid who'd chosen this job because of a viral video about racism and reform, and felt something he didn't expect. Gratitude. "Thank you," Marcus said, "for seeing us." "Thank you," the agent replied, "for teaching us how." The video from Gate C-47 has 47 million views now. The top comment with 340,000 likes reads, "This is what happens when you assume poverty, when you weaponize policy, when you forget that dignity doesn't have a price tag and power doesn't have a uniform. She learned the hard way. He always knew." Below that, thousands of comments. Stories from other travelers who'd been profiled, questioned, humiliated. Stories from white passengers who'd stayed silent when they should have spoken up. Stories from service workers who'd been taught to see threats instead of people. And stories from people who'd been changed by watching. Who'd examined their own assumptions. Who'd spoken up the next time they saw someone being treated unfairly. Who'd done the small, hard work of being better. That's the legacy Jennifer Chen didn't intend to leave. That's the legacy Marcus Thompson built from her failure. Not revenge. Reform. Not destruction. Reconstruction. Not just winning. Changing the game. Jasmine Thompson is 12 now. She still carries the stuffed elephant. still reads books about NASA engineers and physicists and astronauts who look like her. Last week, she asked her father about Gate C-47. "Do you ever wish," she said carefully, "that it never happened, that we'd just gotten on the plane and flown home and that lady never got in trouble?" Marcus thought about it. "No," he said finally, "because if it never happened, the system wouldn't have changed. And the next family, maybe they don't have the power I have. Maybe they don't have the resources to fight back. Maybe they just absorb the humiliation and teach their kids that this is how the world works." "But she lost her job," Jasmine said. "That's sad, isn't it?" "It is," Marcus agreed. "But you know what's sadder? All the families she humiliated before us. All the people who didn't have the power to call the CEO. All the children who learned they were suspect instead of learning they were seen." Jasmine nodded slowly. "So you didn't do it to hurt her, you did it to help them." "That's right." "Good," Jasmine went back to her book. "Then, without looking up, when I'm older I want to do that too, use my power to change systems." Marcus looked at his daughter, his brilliant, fierce, 12-year-old daughter who'd watched her father choose dignity over ease, reform over revenge, and saw the future. "Not perfect. Not finished. But better." "You will, baby," he said. "You absolutely will." At Gate C-47, there's a plaque now. Small, discreet, easy to miss if you're not looking. It reads, "In honor of all travelers who have been made to feel they don't belong, may this gate, may every gate, be a place of welcome, dignity, and equal treatment. Installed June 2024 by Prestige Airlines in commitment to systemic change." Dorothy Thompson requested the plaque. Marcus funded it. But it's not about them. It's about the grandmother traveling with her grandson who sees it and stands a little taller. It's about the young black professional who sees it and feels a little safer. It's about the gate agent who sees it every day and remembers that policy is power, and power demands responsibility. It's about the moment when assumptions meet reality and reality wins. Jennifer Chen learned that the hard way, her career destroyed. Her name synonymous with casual racism, her 12 years of seniority erased in the time it took to question a family's right to be there. Marcus Thompson always knew, taught by his mother, by his father, by every ancestor who'd fought for the simple dignity of being seen as human, that power unused is power wasted. He had the power. He used it. Not for himself. For everyone who'd come before and everyone who'd come after. For the system. For the change. For the future where his daughter could board a plane without wondering if this would be the day someone questioned her right to exist in first class, in boardrooms, in spaces that had spent centuries trying to keep people who looked like her out. That's the real story of Gate C-47. Not a viral moment. A movement. Not a destroyed career. A reconstructed system. Not revenge. Revolution. One gate at a time. One policy at a time. One assumption challenged, one dignity defended, one family seen. Until seeing becomes automatic. Until dignity becomes default. Until belonging is birthright, not battlefield. So here's the question for you. If you'd been in that gate area watching it happen, would you have spoken up? Would you have recorded it? Or would you have stayed silent, grateful it wasn't you being questioned, relieved it was someone else absorbing the humiliation? And here's the second question. When you see power hiding in plain sight, the quiet dignity of people who have survived worse, who carry legacies of resistance in their bones, do you make the same mistakes as Jennifer Chen? Or do you look deeper, assume less, and treat everyone like they belong exactly where they are? Let us know in the comments. Share your own experiences. Tell us about the times you spoke up or wish you had. Tell us about the gate agents and service workers and everyday people who saw you as human first. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button so the algorithm knows that dignity matters, that reform matters, that the hard work of changing systems deserves to be amplified. Hit the like button if you believe Gate C-47 won't be the last battlefield, but it might be a victory that makes the next fight a little bit easier. And stick around for the next story, because there are 1,000 more moments like this happening right now. Quiet battles fought by people with power hiding in plain sight. People who choose reform over revenge. People who understand that the real victory isn't destroying one career but changing the entire game. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, thanks for being part of the change. See you in the next one.